When it comes to system modernizations, really the problem is sort of these old systems, and they can get in the way of a number of goals. You know, it might be your cloud target, it might be a cost prohibitor, it might even be posing a security risk, or it could just be that it's preventing your business from actually being able to change and move and grow in the way that you want it to. So basically, what I thought we'd cover today is really about what are your options in market and how do you go about assessing those options. So we're actually going to start with the assessment first. And so there's really three key metrics for assessing a new system, and they are security, cost, and features. And we'll break each of those down. So when it comes to security, you want to be thinking about things like certain certifications, and that might be with the vendor, or they might be certain certifications you need to hold. You want to think about any regulatory compliance things that you need to consider as part of your business, any specific additional requirements that you may have for that particular system or for your business, and any particularly sensitive data that might be living in that system and how you're going to handle and manage that. Then have a look at cost. So it's really important when it comes to cost, not just to think about the cost you're paying upfront, but actually the cost that you're going to experience over the lifetime of this application. So you'll have your build and implementation costs, but how much is it going to cost to run? What do upgrades or customizations look like? What are your hosting options if you're moving to cloud? How much is that hosting fee going to cost? And any maintenance and support. So how is this system, what is this cost profile going to look like as you change and update and maintain this system over time? And the last metric we have is really all about feature fit. So what kind of features does the system need to have? Is it a functional fit for what you want the system to do? Does it, support any future changes that you want to do to that system? Does it give you options to grow and your business to grow inside of that system? What kind of integrations will you need to support? How is it going to fit inside of your ecosystem in terms of the features that support that kind of ecosystem? None of our systems live alone in their own little isolated world. They're always connected to other things. And then other features around the infrastructure. So what kind of cloud provider is it moving to cloud, and what are the kind of features that you need from an infrastructure perspective? And that might have something to do with load or scalability and all those kind of more technical aspects. So now that we've really covered those kind of assessment metrics, what are the options in the market? So you really have two key options when it comes to replacing a system. You're either going to purchase a new product, so you're going to drop your existing system and shop for something new and off the shelf, or you're really going to be looking at something bespoke. So this might be a partial refactor, this might be a full refactor, or it could be some kind of bespoke build from scratch as well. And so you've got, nuance inside of these two options, but these are primarily where both of your options in market will sit in one of these two buckets. So if we start with product, what does a product look like against those metrics that we just talked about? So one of the great things about product is that your security is usually built in. So it comes the way that it comes, and it comes with it. And as long as that matches all of the criteria that you have that we talked about, it's usually a pretty good choice when the security is really, really important. Then it comes to cost. And this is where product can fall down a little bit, because there are lots of different costs in terms of this. And the biggest cost is often your high migration costs. And it's something to really think about. And it's something to really consider when you're making these choices, because often we think about how much it costs to build and how much it costs to run, but we forget that last part of implementation. How much is it going to cost to get my old data into my new system? And then the last thing, our last metric, is all about features. So products usually have a very defined set of features, and any customization different to those standard features can get really, really expensive. And that's another place where the costs can blow out. You also tend to have a little bit less flexibility in terms of those features. You sort of get what you get out of the box. So when's a product a really good choice for a business? So realistically, the best case or your best choice for product is when your system, your current system, or your business in general fits really closely with the feature set of a product. That's the kind of thing that would allow you to move this kind of orange marker up to a green. If you can either make sure that the features already match your current system, or your business can shift a little bit to match the product more carefully. And so that way you kind of end up with a more well-rounded kind of scoring against your product choice. Now, the other option is obviously bespoke. So how does this measure up against our metrics? So bespoke can be kind of interesting, right? The security is quite manual when you're bespoke building. That's whether you're refactoring or rebuilding. And the thing about that is you've got to do a couple of extra steps to manage it. So you might need to do extra pen testing. You may need to do extra testing in general. You may have other compliance features that you need to go get certified for and things like that. So if your existing system and you're refactoring and it already had pretty decent security, it might be okay. But when you're coming to sort of more of a bespoke build, you tend to spend more time making sure that your security is up to scratch. Now, the cost profile is a little bit lower. Generally speaking, it's more about the implementation than a simple run. You don't get any license costs, which can be really useful, but you've still got to maintain and think about those maintenance costs and who that's going to be done by. Is it by a vendor? Is it by your internal team? And that's going to have an impact on that cost profile as well. Now, features is where bespoke really shines. So for a bespoke build, obviously you get to choose those features and you've got a really, really high flexibility around what kind of features you want and what kind of features you can build. And those features can kind of continue to change with you, presumably over time, because you've built them into the system. The system can continue to be kind of bespoke built and continue to be customized to your needs. So when does that make bespoke a really good choice? Obviously, bespoke is a really good choice when you have not a good feature fit with a product. So when the product isn't that option, that feature fit is really difficult, then bespoke can be a really good option so that you can get exactly the specific features that you need. And that's because, you might have very specific aspects of your business. It might be an area where you want to be highly, differentiated from the market. And so it can be often very worthwhile to go with a bespoke build if you need really, really custom features. Now, we've talked about those two options in market, and as you can kind of see, assessing them against our metrics, none of them are really, outshines the other. There's pros and cons to both. And at Clear Dynamics, we really wanted to have a look at a different way of doing this. Like, surely there's a way to get the best of both worlds. And so at Clear Dynamics, we really take the best of a product choice and a bespoke choice and bring them together. And what that means is essentially you get the built-in security like you do with a product, and that's all due to our platform AEOS, which Francesca will expand on in a minute. But the security is built in like it is in a product. The cost profile is somewhere between the two. So we've still got implementation and license costs, but the migration costs we've been able to reduce and almost remove entirely. So it's much, much lower. And lastly, we've still kept the high flexibility that you get from a bespoke build. So you can still build whatever you need and flex it to your business and your needs so that you can get the features that you want. So I'm sure at this point you're all saying that sounds lovely, but how on earth does that work? And how on earth is that possible? And so I'll actually hand back to Francesco to talk us through how Clear Dynamics does our Clone2Cloud.
So just to recap, Tess has just been taking us through some of the options that may be out there to modernize legacy systems. And we try now to explain what's our approach, which it is a little bit special, I guess. And so I really want to take you through how our Clone2Cloud approach works. Now, Clone2Cloud is a capability that we built on top of our platform that allows us to very quickly take a legacy system and clone it into a modern application that sits on a modern tech stack in the cloud. And there's really 5 steps to it, and I'm really going to focus a bit more time on the first 2, which really are a differentiator, which really are things that not many other companies do out there. So the first step, it's really starting from the data. So when we talk about legacy applications, we talk about applications that have been built, 30, 40 years ago. There's a lot of code that's been written, and people that have written that code originally may have left the organization, may have retired. And so that builds up on the risk of an organization having to manage and maintain a system like that. Also, there's other problems, like we see some of these systems cannot evolve as fast as the business wants to evolve. So it kind of drags down a little bit the business. And also when it comes to integration, some of these legacy systems do not have APIs inbuilt into it. And so integration becomes really hard. And so with Clear Dynamics, what we do, we start from the data, because we really think the data is one of the most important things you have in your organization. There's everything in there. There's the whole history, and there's really a wealth of information into it. So we start from the data, looking at the data structure. So we will take a data schema or a data dictionary, and we will take it and feed it into our platform. And that platform is able to read that information and at the other end create a fully working modern application that's on the cloud. And so it does a number of things. That platform creates a custom database that's done to host the original data as it is, but it's on a modern SQL Server instance, but then creates also the user interface for end users to be able to interact with this data. And then furthermore creates a layer of APIs around it for the new system to be able to be integrated into the rest of the technical landscape. So that is pretty impressive, and that is really like the first step that we do. And we really have a high level of automation. Our platform uses a combination of automation and AI to create this fully working application on a full tech stack, fully secure. And it's not just a lift and shift into the cloud. It actually rewrites the whole source code so that you can have, everything in a modern environment. And so this is the first step, it's very highly automated. And another thing, in the second step, it's about bringing in the data. So as that migration problem that Tessa mentioned before, that's usually has a high cost when we're talking about bringing data into off-the-shelf applications. And the reason for that is simple, because the data is structured in a certain way in a legacy technology, but the target system is usually different. They're on their own way of structuring data. And so now we need to have a big transformation. We need to take the data from the legacy technology, apply ETL, and there's a lot of work that goes into that just to even analyze the way the data is flowing through the organization and make sure it can land, on the other hand, in a new data model, bringing across all the processes with it. So it's usually a very expensive and time-consuming process. And here at Clear Dynamics, we've invented a technology that simplifies all of that. Because if you think about it, we've created a custom database at the other hand that's got a perfect fit for your data to come in. So we can take the data and move it in as it is into the new modern platform. So this saves us a lot of costs and saves you, I would say, a lot of time and cost. And also it guarantees us that no data gets left behind, which I think it's another important point that we need to consider here. Usually through data migrations, there may be data loss. And so some of the data that may be old but still relevant and important and critical for some organizations gets lost into the transformation. So with our approach, the data gets put in the new modern software as it is, with no data left behind. Once we've done that, of course, now it's time to have a look at this data. And, we'll certainly discover duplicates, tables that shouldn't be there or maybe need to be merged, data that needs to be cleaned up. But now we can do that into the modern platform, into our platform, which provides all the tools to transform this data and quickly change the application. So we're doing all of that in a modern tech stack, which is a big advantage and speeds up things. And then the other part of the step 2, and we'll look at these into a bit more details in a minute, is about doing a reverse discovery of some of the business processes. Now, a lot of organizations have business processes documented, but there's also other organizations which they don't have these business processes documented from the legacy system. Stuff has been built in there, and with time, the knowledge has gone lost about what is the process. We know it works into the legacy application, but we can't quite figure out how. And we've helped quite a few companies to using our reverse discovery technology that looks at a combination of data and source code to have that rebuild those processes into the new modern clone. Then, once we've done that, at the end of point 2, we really have a functioning software. It's about starting identifying some of the edge cases. And so we'll do A/B testing, running the systems in parallel. And then we'll look at the integration. And again, we've got the tools that use AI to do the mappings of the existing integrations as well, and make sure that the system can be integrated in the existing tech landscape. I should say the new modern system. And then we'll have a look at the front end. The system comes with an out-of-the-box user interface that's already pre-built, but most customers want to tweak that and change it and make it more usable as well for the end users. So we'll do that step. Now, I just want to go a bit deeper into step 1 and step 2, which I think it's where we really differentiate out there. So when it comes to step 1, that data-led cloning, we're looking at the data dictionary, a data schema. We can work a number of other structures as well. Usually we ask our customers to give us, information about the structure of their data, and we'll use that to feed it into our platform, EOS, and that creates automatically a modern clone in the cloud, looking at the data. Again, creates the database, creates the user interface, creates the APIs, all wrapped into security. I think security, it's also a very important part here. So we're using AI and automation to build the new software. So best practices of software development are embedded in there. There's no risk of human errors that usually generate security flaws when they develop applications. Then the second step is that migration as well. Well, still in that step 1, the second part is really the migration. And we've seen how this is drastically simplified with our platform, because the data gets transitioned as it is. And we can also, feed that from multiple systems and, consolidate that into the target system. We've done that for quite a number of customers now. So that migration is now faster and with less risk and with no data left behind. And then we can have a look, of course, at the remediation and modernization, which is really the step 2. So that reverse discovering, trying and understand some of the business processes that are embedded into the legacy technology. We have 2 ways of doing that, 2 ways that actually work in parallel. First, we really start with the data. We have a look at the lineage of data. We have a look at different snapshots of your data in time to identify how the data has been changed through time, and identify what are some of those patterns that highlight certain workflows or business rules within your organization. And we use a mix of data science based visualization and linear regression models to do that. And once we start identifying some of these business processes, we can automatically create workflow rules into the modern technology and the system that we've cloned, so that we can replicate some of these business processes. Now, of course, this is not a click of a button type of process. It's still a process that requires interaction between ourselves and yourself and your subject matter experts to extract and define some of those rules. But that's a big uplift here that the technology does already for us. So we've got a lot of information, and now we just need to validate with your experts. And the second, and again, we do this in parallel. So we'll have a look at the data to reverse discovery some of the processes, but also we'll have a look at the code, especially when it comes to very, very old legacy technology. A lot of that knowledge, a lot of those business rules are really embedded in the code. And so that's where we use AI and machine learning to actually reverse discovery some of the business rules within the code base, and then match that together with the information we've discovered from the data in order to give you the best chance of having the new business processes and rules up and running into the new clone system. Yeah, so I'm just going to pause there just to recap. From the start, we've seen some of what the problem is about legacy technologies, and how hard can it be about thinking about modernizing it, going into an off-the-shelf, or having to build yourself the new modern technology. While here, what we're saying is we've developed a platform that's able to automate most of the process of cloning a legacy technology into a modern tech stack. We've seen some of the steps required to do that, and we've seen also why we're different from other vendors in the market, and what is the advantage that we bring. Well, first, we can work with the data. We think the data is king. We start from the data, and from there we'll build a fully working software in a very short period of time. And then we can use as well a combination of automation, AI, data science, to actually do the reverse discovery of some of the business processes to make sure your target system, it's not just on a modern tech stack, but it's got all the business rules and the data into it. And finally, don't forget that once you are on a modern tech stack, then making changes is easy. Using our platform, can quickly change anything, whether it's adding tables, adding information, merging information, creating new user interface, implementing new business processes that the business really needs to be competitive or to get the edge out there in the market. We can help you with that.